Hey everyone, it's your favorite seeker of knowledge. And yeah, today I wanted to talk about. I guess this would be a follow up to my other video that I did, the consolation of disappointment. Well, right alongside that is the consolation of knowledge. Um, and yeah, what exactly do I mean by that? I mean that really because of the various disappointments I've faced in my life as a disabled man and as a man, and I mean that probably not in the most PC way, but people forget that man can also refer to like humanity. I know that's kind of controversial, but anyway, yeah. But as a man and a disabled man, um knowledge has always kind of been my refuge from disappointment. Um, Especially in my teenage years, philosophy. Which I mean, I can't lie. I also had a big push from my brother, who, you know, I love my brother. Because like he was in IB, he went to Harvard and stuff like that, but I sort of was like just very lucky to like um live alongside him because he passed on to me a lot of like really good intellectual stuff, you know. Um and so um yeah, I mean, like, whenever something bad would happen to me, guys, I would like immediately run to a book, or, since I'm a late millennial, early Gen Z, a YouTube documentary uh about some crazy eccentric or some loser like me that would make it out or become famous. And obviously, bro, like, I'm far from being like those people, like a Don Cuppet or a Nikola Tesla, or like a Nietzsche, or like, those guys. And yeah, as I sort of enter my later 20s. I mean, technically I'm in my mid 20s right now, but 27, I guess, is technically the start of your later 20s, right? This year it's coming up, and like, as I reflect back on it, I realize um that you know just like kind of everything else, like I'm said in an earlier video almost 2 years ago, everything is cope. The consolation of knowledge is cope. Now, I think it's one of the healthier copes, and that didn't mean that I didn't go through my own, you know, phase, let's just say, where I believe some pretty unsavory things, to say the least. I've also talked about that, but like, yeah, I'm reminded of um the book of Ecclesiastes, man, the wisdom of Shlomo, Solomon, dog, and like, um yeah, like, it's all vanity, dog. It's all a chasing after the wind. But at the same time, it's like, what did you expect me to do? As I said in my other video, like, guys, I was able to read when I was like 4 years old in English and Spanish. And like, since then, that has been the main vehicle for me to escape from my problems, alongside, games and But even then, like I would mostly watch non-fiction stuff or like lectures and stuff, again heavily influenced by my brother. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's better than other substances, right? I wasn't hurting anyone or myself. Or you, maybe you could say that I was, because you know, excuse me, being locked up in an ivory tower, basically not saying anything to anyone for 8 years. Because since I moved and had my operation, which I've already also talked about on this channel, I didn't really go outside other than for school, um, until the lockdowns started to be lifted, which would have been like mid to late 2021, early 2022. That's when I really started to make an effort to move beyond knowledge and into actual life. I started to touch grass, guys, and it's still vanity, cuz as we know, the same fate befalls the popular and the unpopular, the wise and the learned and the knowledgeable, and the unlearned and the unknowledgeable just the same. But um thankfully, thankfully, um you know what? I did actually learn a use for all that knowledge, all that theoretical knowledge that I built up in my ivory tower, especially moral knowledge. Um, and that's to actually try and put it into practice in my daily life. And in some ways, that's also a privilege, because a lot of people, and I've seen this with my own parents, right? Who, we are immigrants, right? But obviously they had to work for us. I couldn't really work, and I mean, I'm gonna try to get a job very soon, but for most of that, I couldn't work either, and like, but people don't actually realize how much circumstance um actually pushes people to do quote unquote bad things, guys. Like, it's like that quote, I forget who says it, but when you're starving, let's see how quickly or how much you follow the law, right? Um but I've never had to worry about that, really. I mean, yes, we were poor, and yes, we had periods of food insecurity, but like it wasn't ever enough to the point where, you know, I had to stop pursuing knowledge. And that's a great privilege. And, like, what am I going to do? Just not use it in my daily life? Even stuff outside of, like, philosophy and ethics and morality, guys. Like, I'm reminded of a situation from my AP Calculus ABBC class from 2015 to 2016, guys, where like um the teacher, I believe, was showing us the fundamental theorem of calculus, which essentially just shows you how, you know a derivative is the inverse of an integral and vice versa, and how that's extremely useful and stuff like that. And she showed us the little boxes that you that you draw under the area of the curve and stuff like that, and how to, you know, do Taylor series to actually find a line tangent to a point on a continuous function and stuff like that, bro. And like I cried, guys, but um and my aide at that time, he made fun of me for it, but like the reason I cried was because I had sort of known that calculus was important to something like physics, but when the teacher showed us that, like, I really felt like I was starting to actually understand the world. You know, not just read about it in like a science textbook and stuff like that. And eventually I was able to understand Maxwell's equations on electromagnetism, man. And that came later. That came a little later in college, right? But it's like, you know, I came out with a greater appreciation of the world, and I didn't despise nature for what it did to me by making me this way so much. Um, and that's the way I felt at the time, right? Which was more of a reflection of how I felt about myself, but it was one of those first keys to me to for me to say, like, you know what, I'm actually a pretty okay person. My existence is okay, and like, you know, once I started to really link all the stuff that I learned with the real world and touch grass a little bit more after so much time of being isolated, it really did change my life. And as meaningless as it might be, that to me is the consolation of knowledge for me. And once again, that's a great privilege. And I'm so happy I am able and was able all these years to do so. As much as I didn't think it would pay off in the end, it did. The consolation of philosophy, of knowledge, philosophy, mathematics, science, history, it paid off, guys. Um, thank you very much.